All right, GERO 508. So today is Sunday the 23rd. I made the video on how to deal with stress and how to understand stress, okay, and the mechanisms of stress yesterday. And so that was the preceding video. It was kind of a necessary evil that you guys understand the kind of basic biology of stress, and especially at the neuroscience and endocrine level, because we're going to reflect back on that for a big chunk of this semester. Again, you understand it at the level that you know. Don't worry about the details, but hopefully we're getting through to you and making it easier on you. All right. All right. So we're starting here again with the home page that you'll see when you're looking at your USC homepage. Looking at these are the courses that are being offered for summer. These are courses that you would be taking in summer, and then I'm going to click right into GERO 508. Okay. All righty. So you're going to get 3 videos today from me, and it covers this again, that background on the kind of neuroscience and endocrinology, as well as the behavioral effect of chronic stress. Okay, and the evils of that, and we're gonna get into that, and then we're gonna come up with a plan. All right, a plan to minimize stress and hopefully actually turn back the pages on some of the really bad things that can happen when you're exposed to chronic stress. All right. I know you guys are stressed out right now. That's where you're taking this course. You're trying to get yourselves ahead. You know, it's hard to be a human being, but you guys are doing a good job, and we're going to get you through this class, and hopefully you'll have a better feel on how to manage your stress because of this class. All right, awesome. Okay, so we can go in through the modules here on the right, as I've shown you. So I can click right into here. All right, and we're going to see how things have changed a bit right here. All right, so this is module 1. Again, I can access it by going to content as well. I'll just go back to the home page of my course right here, which is, you see how it lights up? That's how you know what you're doing. So you're going back to the home page. And then I can just go into content and have the same outcome as using the visual content or visual glossary, so to speak, which is the widgets. Okay, so I'm back here, all right? So what I did yesterday is I put a video in here to support the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is there for you to read, okay? And as I went through it, I was going over the physiology. So this is the YouTube lecture. Again, this is, you guys have your own channel, all right? So every single one of these lectures is going to be put into the GERO 508 Summer 2024 Brightspace channel. And so it's easy access for you. And you can see here, we're looking at not the brain, but we're looking down here at systems affected by our psychological well-being, and that was the endocrinology. Okay, and so we're looking down here at your adrenal glands, okay, located down here by your kidneys, okay, and we were looking at some of the physiological effects that happen through there in that video. All right, awesome. So what I'm going to do now, so I encourage you to go through that first, all right? Don't belabor it, okay? And then what we'll do here is I'm going to go back to my module. You see how you get used to clicking on different components and going from there. Now, one thing you might want to do here, let's go ahead and depending on how you like to learn and how you like to do your immediate assessment, okay? So you could go in twice. So I'm going to just go right back into Brightspace right here. Okay, I'm back in, right? And I can go right back into my course. It's taking a little while here, all right? Hope you like my office space here, right? This is the background you're going to get used to. So I go right back into the course. But why am I doing this, okay? I'm going to go into the content, okay, which is going to take me to the week 1 module. But maybe some of you, what I'm getting at is maybe you want to just go ahead and open your quiz, all right? All righty, so here's the quiz right here, all right? So it shows you what it looks like right there, all right? And then what you might want to do, let's see here, am I in as a, could be potentially, I'm not, oh, I'm in as me. I'm gonna go in as a learner, okay? All right, go back in here. go in as a learner and see if I have a different outcome. You know, this is a little bit new to me as well, guys. So we're just kind of seeing what happens, right? So I want to look at the quiz right here. All right, there's my quiz details. Da, 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 da. Okay, so apparently, okay, so I cannot do this like you. So then I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to activities, go for quizzes. I'm determined. Okay, I want to see if I can get going here. All right, I don't know if it's going to let me go in, but I'm going to try here. All right, and click on that, and same drill. All right, all right. Click start quiz to begin attempt. But see, because I'm the instructor, I don't have that access. So I'm just going to keep playing until I find it. All right, so that was activities. I may not be able to get into it, guys, and that's a shame. But no. All right, screw it. All right, but that's what you can do. All right. All right, so let's go directly into this part right here, which is the curriculum, okay? Again, you saw the previous video that I did, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have you watch these two Sapolsky videos, okay? And then we're gonna go over the Sapolsky paper at the very end, and I'll do that with you right now, okay? All right, so this national documentary video, Stress, the Portrait of a Killer, it's about 60 minutes long. It's amazing, okay? And I'll just kind of give you the skinny a little bit on this, even though it was done in 2008, it's very relevant. And what is unique about this is you're able to blend animal research, okay, bench science, so to speak, with epidemiology. And so they talk about studying human populations. In this particular case, they were looking for, when you design a study, you want to eliminate as many variables as you can so that you have maybe one variable that you're looking at, and that would be in terms of the British study where they were looking at the government workers, part of the social services category. They all had a very similar job profile, but it was just a matter of hierarchy, and he was matching that. Okay, when I say hierarchy, it's kind of the pecking order: who's the boss, who's intermediate, and who's very low in terms of the hierarchy of the totem pole in the workplace, right? He then compares that to what he saw out there when studying baboons, and it's the same deal. There's a whole social status hierarchy in primate populations. So you now have this applied translational study. We're looking at things in parallel, the baboons and the humans, okay? And other than that, all the variables were roughly the same. And that was the concept with looking at that. Because we could look at the entire British population, but there would be different jobs, you know? One would be somebody who owns a pub. Another would be the social services working for the government. But another might be working for a large tech company. So there's right there, the job variation doesn't make the equivalent. So his concept is we're going to have a single job category and look at the stress that these people have, and then look at some of the readouts, okay? So what were the readouts, okay? So we saw that animals that were low sociality, in terms of sociality, had very, very high levels of this cortisol, which is, again, we're supposed to be releasing these stress hormones when we're in imminent danger. Like I always say, you're being chased by a shark in the water, chased by a lion. It's over within a few seconds, and then you're able to reconstitute yourself. You go from the rest, you go from the fight or flight phenomena, that is the neurobiology and endocrinology of that, directly into rest and digest, and then you're actually able to rebuild your body so that the next time you encounter the stress again, now you're up and ready to go, okay? So, but you know, the problem is, as Sapolsky showed, when you're under just constant social stress, psychological stress, that we're turning on the same system and you never turn it off, okay? So that means blood levels of adrenaline, blood levels of cortisol go sky high, okay? And what then happens when you have that going on is, remember, the cortisol is always feeding back to the brain, say, hey, can we please shut this off? But to the detriment of the brain, if you never shut it off, it actually begins to eat away at the two control centers that try and limit activation of the stress system. That's the hippocampus, and then the decision maker here, the prefrontal cortex. Okay, and so he shows how things began to eat away in those brain areas. Okay, now what are some of the other consequences? Okay, so the one researcher comes in and makes the connection. So it's been shown for years and years and years. Okay, that high levels of stress contribute to cardiovascular disease. Okay, specifically any type of vascular disease, anywhere a blood vessel goes, kidneys, brains, eyes, brain is impacted by stress. All right. So, so we've known that through, and that's called epidemiology. You just have people fill out a form, rate their stress. We look at their readouts of cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, for example. Okay, if we were to image, we see you could do a calcium scan and see high levels of plaque. Okay, or you can do post-mortem analysis, which is what they did in this study when they were looking at the monkeys, and we saw that the blood vessels were full of plaques. Okay. In addition, you could go in there and look at blood cholesterol and see that that is an additional readout. So we're seeing that this connection then of social stress, okay, psychological stress from just societal pressures, going into the biology of stress of causing hypertension, which high pressure in your blood vessels is like kicking the hose outside, the manguera, okay, the garden hose, and the water comes shooting out. Well, that happens in blood vessels, and it damages the blood vessels. The immune system goes in there to fix it. You have inflammation. It doesn't work correctly, okay, and you begin the development of plaques. What happens is you have the core diameter of a blood vessel, okay, and then when plaques form, okay, then you now see that even though the diameter is the same, roughly, it's chock full of plaque. So that means same volume of blood, less volume, even more hypertension, and it leads to problems. The plaque will burst off and float around and cause a stroke. Okay, it can be a big stroke, be lots of mini strokes. Okay, that affect the entire brain. It could be happening down the kidneys, the eyes, on and on and on. All right. The other thing that was reflected in here is we have certain types of cells in our body that their job is to renew the tissue. All right, so not all of our body has very rapid replacement. There's minimal replacement from stem cells in our brain. We have minimal ability in our skeletal muscles and our cardiac muscles, but then all, depending on the tissue, for example, your gastrointestinal system, where you're exposed to lots of environmental toxins, you think about the stuff you put in your mouth every day, we need stem cells, and those stem cells need to divide to produce new cells that will produce new lining to the gut. The one that is studied routinely almost 100% of the time are the stem cells that produce brand new white blood cells that are used to fight off both viral and bacterial infections. So these would be looking at your lymphocytes, your B cells, and your T cells. Those are the ones that are usually studied. And then there's a whole other class of white blood cells called the myeloid cells that they don't undergo as much cell division, okay, and they're your sentries. But getting back to cell division, there's a part of the chromosome that is kind of like a biological clock. And within your stem cells, where we only have so many stem cells in our bone marrow to produce new blood cells, mind-blowing, guys, we produce 200 billion new white blood cells every single day. But the rate at which we're able to do that slows down, so the capacity slows down because we start to exhaust these stem cells in our bone marrow. And part of that exhaustion is we have this little time clock, the telomere, that's getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter in the very end of the chromosome. The shorter the telomere, the slower the rate of cell division for these stem cells, so the slower rate of production of new white blood cells. And the really sad thing about a sad thing about it is when the telomere is like you screw a cap onto the end of the chromosome and it protects the chromosome. When the telomere gets smaller and smaller, then the chromosome gets more and more exposed and more likely to undergo mutation. So we see age-related lymphomas and leukemias go up and up and up because of this. And why are we talking about all this? In the video, they show that stress shortens the telomeres, okay? So there's all this kind of mind to body connection, the biology that's going on here. So that's, big take homes that you get from this documentary. Then Sapolsky goes in here and he really talks about, sadly, our psychology and how we're constantly tapping into this very system that is designed to keep us from being attacked by a pack of wolves. We're tapping into it on a daily basis because we're not getting enough likes on whatever we just posted, okay? Silly as that is, okay? That's what's going on, all right? Okay, so then backing this up, okay, is this paper, okay, that we'll go through with you right now. Now, one key component of this concept is, yes, we have stressors. I'm thinking about going surfing later on today. That is a controlled stress. I have been doing this forever, so I know what I'm getting myself into. And I release just enough stress hormones that I'm going to activate this one type of receptor, right? So this one type of receptor right here is called the mineralocorticoid receptor. That's neither here nor there. It's just a receptor that is occupied by low levels of stress hormone. This is my stress hormone right here, cortisol. So when I release a low amount, you see, I don't even activate this system. I'm activating this system, and it's actually beneficial to my brain. It's beneficial to my learning and memory and my plasticity and my ability to handle that stress I'm putting myself into, which is surfing. So I'll do it better the next time, okay? Awesome, okay? And I do it at just the right level. Now, if, however, every time I went out into water, I was chased by a shark and I got tons of fear and I no longer went surfing, I would be at this level of the stress hormone. And yes, I'm going to occupy this guy, but what happens is this other guy gets occupied and counteracts the effects and has very detrimental effects, causing shrinking of the neurons that control learning and memory, the hippocampus, so we get this stress-related dementia, and it's for real. It's a very real thing. If somebody has dementia, you should screen them for their stress first, okay? And then the other thing is it impairs the ability of your frontal cortex here to make correct decisions, to gather information and kind of just categorize and then say, I'm going to do this, this, and this as an executive. The cortex and the hippocampus both shrink when this is occupied right here. All right, so that's the bottom line on that. So that comes from this paper right here. Like I said, I provided the URL, but you need a subscription, so this is why we have the PDF file right here. All righty, so you never know with a PDF file. Sometimes you just have to use your downward arrow like I'm using on my keyboard, okay? Or sometimes you can click on the arrow and then you can use the grab bar. It just depends. All right, so we're going to look at this really great kind of semi-historical 3-page overview of stress, okay? And so we look at, what are the components, the parts, okay? And bottom line, it's very true, as Sapolsky says right here, the brain influences the body, okay? And the peripheral physiology influences the brain, right? So the brain turns on the stress response, okay? And then what's happening out here in my body will feed back up to the brain and influence its activity. So it's this ongoing feedback loop that's never ending, okay? This can happen, very subtle emotions, okay? You're just sitting there thinking, ruminating about stuff, okay? You can initiate a stress response, okay? You're thinking about, God, you know what? How am I going to pay for this class, okay? That's a very real stressor, okay? And there are consequences, and he talks about this in the paper, in the body, okay? The biggest consequence that I see, okay, is the increase in atherosclerosis, and then the secondary big consequence is what it's doing to your ability to have cell division, also protect the chromosomes in terms of those telomeres, all right? All right, so let's get into this, okay? Let's contemplate this, okay? So in this first part right here, he gives us a little, historical viewpoint, okay? And he was looking at the secretion of hormones, this initial scientist, and you don't need to know the names of these people, okay? These two guys got the Nobel Prize for physiology when they first discovered what was called the hypothalamic, which is the control center in our brain, pituitary, which is the gland that releases adrenal axis, okay? And the adrenal gland is the hormone that's going to release either adrenaline or cortisol into your bloodstream, all right? So they were talking about this system right here. Alrighty. So when they went through this, okay, and they started looking at it, then there was the biologist viewpoint, and then in comes the psychologist, okay, and their concept of the stress response, okay, and how a psychological trauma can take on this acute physical crisis, okay, and it's being activated purely by your thoughts. That's what he's saying, right? Purely by psychological states, okay. For example, there's no worse than stress, kind of stress, than a loss of control, okay? A loss of predictability, okay? And then what happens is a loss of social support, okay? And we actually saw recently last year, all right? So Dr. Murthy from the head of the CDC made this announcement that we had this epidemic of loneliness, and that it had more disruption to your health. So it had a much greater negative impact on your health than even smoking cigarettes. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. All right. Awesome. Okay. So he continues to go through this, and like I said, one thing that was first noticed when we were looking at the effects is that when you have prolonged stress, and I always talk about this in class, you dramatically increase the odds of being sick. Okay, so why is that? Okay, part of the problem is that stress inhibits the action of major immune system cells that are there to fight off viral and bacterial infections. Okay, so this was found out pretty early on, and so this is a whole section we're going to talk about. Psycho, okay, meaning your psychological well-being. Okay, neuro, meaning the nervous system components to it, and how it interacts with your immune system, neuroimmunology. So it's psychoneuroimmunology, huge field, all right? So anybody that's into wellness and into meditation, this is the roots of all this, all right? All righty, so pretty good background on this, okay? So when we looked at the basics of this, okay? One of the first things, he'll talk about it in that video, is that one of the ultimate targets of cortisol is the hippocampus. Hippocampus is your learning and memory center. It's important for forming new memories. It's also important for retrieving old memories and directing behavior, okay? The hippocampus has really, really strong connections with the prefrontal cortex for your decision making, and really, really strong connections with the amygdala to set into motion a very fast stress response if something's happening, or like, hey, last time that happened, all hell broke loose, so I need to get on my game, okay? Alrighty, so what we see here is that this hippocampus, okay, we see in people that are stressed, okay, that this type of memory formation, forming names, forming new memories from reading, things like that, is dramatically reduced in people that are highly stressed out. And then we look at the frontal cortex, your executive, okay, your decision maker, also impacted. So neurobiologists went in there and they looked and they saw, oh my God, you know, these brain areas, the neurons look really horrible. They're shrinking. If we can do an MRI and look at the size, it's shrinking. And this is, you know, we correlate that and with the fact that they have chronically high blood levels of the stress hormone cortisol. All right. Very, 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 very cool. Okay. Another thing that happens is the stress hormones, okay, cause neuroinflammation, right? I'm having trouble getting this thing going there. There it is, inflammation. Okay, now we know that short-term we can inject steroids to reduce swelling and inflammation. So it's a little like counterintuitive. However, long-term exposure to stress hormones is a lot different than short-term exposure. And long-term exposure causes lots of inflammation that has been shown to lead to disease, and specifically as a mechanism for clinical depression. Okay, awesome. All righty. Now we're going to go on to a whole different arena. Okay, and this whole concept of early life stressors. Okay, extreme stressors, and what that does to you. Okay, and what this whole area, this whole section is down here, is it's talking about these early life exposures and how it changes our DNA. Okay, now the DNA, the recipe is always going to be the same, but it's all a matter of which recipes you're going to read at any point in time. It's like a cook station. Okay, you can make 1,000 different meals. Okay, but based on what the waiter tells you, you're going to make 4 or 5 meals. Okay, these switches that turn on and off the genes that are going to turn on and off different proteins, the production of different hormones. This is called epigenetics, okay? And so it's been shown that life stressors will turn on and off genes in a good or bad way, okay? If it's a low-grade stress, you turn on a good way. If it's chronic, unrelenting, high-grade stress, you turn on genes that are not good for you, all right? And as he goes through this, okay, not only is this issue of early life adversity, which is a big deal, okay, and the thing that is important is that we can reverse it, okay. There's a lot of potential for reversing this, but however, if you don't, there's also evidence that it gets passed on to future generations, which is crazy. Which switches are turned on and off, okay? All righty. Okay, so as we look at this, okay, he's going to go through the kind of differences that are out there. Everybody is going to respond to stress in a different way, and it again has a lot to do with our genetic makeup. Okay, so he talks about this. Okay, and then when he's talking about the brain, he talks about this guy right here, the amygdala. Okay, the amygdala, A stands for anger, A in the word fear. Okay, A and it starts with the first letter of anxiety. So these are all. The amygdala fires and puts you into the stress mode, okay? The amygdala sends out its basically signals to the hypothalamus, okay, to adrenaline generating centers, and it just turns on the stress response. That's all you need to know there, okay? Alrighty, so it grows. So this seems like, well, then I'll be better set up for stress, but it isn't, okay? Because when it grows, and he's talking about right here, it has really detrimental effects down the line. All right. Okay. So then he talks about this with respect to psychiatric disorders, and there's clear biology connecting to the epidemiology. So we look at people that are stressed out, or we can do the bench science and stress out animals, and we see that certain genes, remember I was talking about genes get turned on and off, okay, based on epigenetics. It's these switches. The epigenetics we're going to talk about later on is called methylation, okay? And so sometimes certain genes are turned on, certain genes are turned off. It just all depends. That then predispose the individual to having some type of psychiatric disorder, okay? And this has been shown over and over and over again. All righty. This is, again, this concept of the inverted U that we've gone over a couple of times. I'm not going to do that again, okay? And then he talks about where we can take this in the future, all right? And how can we account for how different everything is, okay? Why some individuals do so well, some don't do so well, and it's very real. We look at the continuum of the world. Some people can never do public speaking, okay? Some people can do really well in that, on and on and on. Some people handle breakups really well. Some people can live alone. Why is that? And so this is a big question that's going on. So he's going into the inverted U. He goes over these different types of receptors. Like I said, this is the good guy right here, okay? When you have low levels of stress hormones, okay? And then this is the good guy right here, GR impairs, okay? When you have high levels of stress hormones. So in our nerve cells, we have these two types of receptors that just sit there as a sensor sampling our stress hormones high or low. If they're just a little bit low, cool, we're going to work with that. If they're high, oh no, we got to shut everything off. What are we going to do? And it overactivates the neuron and causes lots and lots of problems. It will cause cell death, okay? And so that's, again, reflecting back here, the level of the stress hormone. Scientists like to call it corticosterone. It's also called a glucocorticoid, and that's why we got this name, the glucocorticoid receptor. Okay, and low-grade stress is good stimulation, good neurobiological effects, activating mostly this type of receptor. Overstimulation, okay, this guy dominates and causes cell death. Awesome. Okay, guys, so that is the essence of this first module. And then I'm going to go ahead and do another lecture right now for module 2 that incorporates this and it'll be shorter. As I know I say this all the time, but it'll be shorter because we've already gone over these basic themes. Okay, all right, peace. We'll see you next time.